My name is Alexis Jackson, and I'm a senior at Virginia Tech studying in Hotchkiss Lab. Today, I will be discussing the dynamic contributions of riparian wetlands to carbon emissions. But first, I want to give some acknowledgments. This research was funded by a National Science Foundation grant and a Global Change Center undergraduate research grant. I want to thank Dr. Hotchkiss, Kristen, Stephen, Jack, and the rest of Hotchkiss Lab for helping with this project. So, what is a wetland? A wetland has three characteristics: hydric soil, hydrophilic vegetation, and hydrology. But why are wetlands important? Wetlands are important because they receive, store, and emit carbon, as well as serve as a hotspot for biogeochemical carbon cycling, which makes them amongst the most productive ecosystem. There are many types of wetlands, such as coastal wetlands, marshes, and riparian wetlands, which is what we'll be focusing on in this research. So what was the purpose of this research? We wanted to know more about riparian wetlands and their function, learn more about how they varied over time for their carbon dioxide and methane emissions, and learn how the presence of water affects carbon cycling in these wetlands. For the methods, we did this work in 4 forested riparian wetlands, the first wetland being Fern Gully, located in Jefferson National Forest, and the second being Jacob's Ladder, also located in Jefferson National Forest. The third being Ball Creek, located in Coweta Hydrologic Laboratory in North Carolina, and O5 wetland, also located in Coweta. So for the methods, I took flux chamber measurements from sites in each wetland over the course of 3 months in summer 2019. Then we placed water inundation loggers across transects within each wetland to see how water presence changed over the course of time. In the center, you'll see an example of how flux was calculated using carbon dioxide emissions over a short period of time, usually being 300 seconds or 5 minutes. So this generated thousands of data points to quality check with field notes and graphs. Then we took the slope of each graph, plugged it into an equation, and then used them to calculate emission flux. If the slope was negative, this would be an example of a sink. But if it was positive, like this one is, it would be an example of a source. So, in speaking of sources, all sites were sources of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere most of the time. We see 2 measurements where Fern Gully was a sink. Size on the x-axis and carbon dioxide in micromoles per second per square meter is on the y. We see that it is sorted by region, Coweta and Poverty Creek, and we see how variable it is between these wetlands. For methane, we see that Coweta sites were sources of methane, but Poverty Creek sites were mostly sinks of methane. Size on the x-axis again, carbon dioxide emissions in micromoles per second per square meter is on the y, and is also color-coded by region. So in conclusion, we saw that all sites were sources of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. We saw that Coweta sites were sources of methane, but we see that Poverty Creek were sinks. Since we know there's no role of temperature with these gas emissions, we will look at water inundation loggers to see if there's any influence on methane and carbon dioxide fluxes. With that being said, thank you for listening to my presentation. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them below.